Welcome everyone to the first edition of SDG Action Conclave 2020, and we are conducting today's session focusing on SDG Goal 9, which is build resilient infrastructure, promote sustainable industrialization, and foster innovation. So let me tell you a bit about our organization. Youth Forum is a project under Alexis Society, and our team consists of inspired young students and professionals who are solely interested in creating positive social impact by conducting research on policy issues, writing thought provoking and insightful blogs, designing creative social campaigns, organizing life changing events, and interviewing leaders and change makers like we're doing today. So, to tell you a bit about the SDG Action Conclave, we wish to bring together the change makers and the leaders from around the globe under the hashtag Act for SDGs campaign, Week of the United Nations. It will help to prepare an actionable agenda that will aid all in achieving sustainable development goals through uh, stakeholder initiatives, and many more. While world leaders meet virtually at the United Nations General Assembly to take up to and trying to grapple issues and give a solution to the tough times, we are trying to do our small bit by taking action and raising awareness and initiating a better direction ahead. The turning point of the planet, and the people need to do that now. So, in order to start the session, let me introduce our speaker first, our distinguished speaker first. So, Naveen Jain is an entrepreneur and he's a philanthropist. He has the guts to grapple the world's biggest issues and he strives to solve them through innovation. He's a self made billionaire and an inspiration to young and upcoming entrepreneurs around the world. He has founded several successful and influential companies and organizations such as Moon Express, World Innovation Institute, Viome, iNome, Infospace, TalentWise, Intelius, and many more, where he has envisioned beyond the present technology landscape and creates platforms to suit the future. So, Moon Express actually became the first private company in the world to receive permission to travel beyond Earth's orbit. The company received a green light to venture into the moon in 2017, pushing humanity forward to a true multi-planetary society. And so Naveen has been the recipient of many honors for his entrepreneurial success, and also in recognizing his contribution to the world, he has received a lot of awards. So some of these awards include Ernest and Young Entrepreneur of the Year, Albert Einstein Technology Medal for Pioneers in Technology, Top 50 Philanthropist of 2018 by Town and Country magazine. He has received the Humanitarian Innovation Award at the United Nations. So his ideas and capacity are limitless in creating novel, innovative avenues. He's a change maker. He introduces much needed cultural updates to the society. So that's about our distinguished speaker today. We are so happy to have you, sir. And let me also introduce the chair for our session today. So he's Kunal Mandal. He's the co-founder of Gyan Space, a gamification company which uses quizzes and other games as a tool for personal growth and people engagement, and also citybytesindia.com. He has founded citybytesindia.com as well. It's a travel portal which helps travelers discover and book inspiring city experiences provided by local experts. Currently, he's on a mission to teach curiosity as a life skill, increase awareness about sustainability, and empower young Indians to be more than they thought they could be. So, to take forward the discussion while trying to arrive at solutions through this session on SDG number 9, I would like to hand over the conduct to Kunal sir.
Thank you, Savitri, and everyone who is joining right now and listening to us. Welcome once again to the SDG Conclave 2020. It's a pleasure for all of us to be able to bring this concept to you and to help all of you inspire. And we have a very, very special person today with us. Naveen Jain, welcome. Naveen, you have been an inspiration to me personally, and I'll come to that why and how. And there's so many people who has just inspired by your vision and mission in life. So Since we are on SDG 9 and innovation, let me share a little bit about personal thing, and then lead into the first question that I have for you today. So, being a quiz master, I have always believed the power of right questions can help people solve problems or grow as an individual. In fact, my mission in life is to teach curiosity as a life skill and turn the entire education or learning system probably into a game if I can. And whenever I say this with people, 99%, 99.9% of them laugh at it. But you, on the other hand, have always said curiosity is going to save the world. In the context of SDG 9, which is about fostering innovation, what role do you think curiosity plays? And please tell us about your role in curiosity and how important do you think it is?
So first of all, Kunal, thank you very much for inviting me here, and anyone who is listening to it, welcome. This is, one of the, I would say, pivotal moment in human history. There has never been a time where you and I and every individual out there actually has a potential to make a change that could fundamentally change the trajectory of how humanity is going to live. It was never possible before. If you go back to the olden days, it used to be the kings and queens that made the decisions that impacted the people's lives, then became the aristocrats that actually changed people's life, and then it became the superpowers and the politicians who actually could change people's life. Now it is one person. All it takes is one person who says enough is enough, and it changes the way people are going to live their life. Whether you're looking at Elon saying, I'm going to go build an electric car, and nobody told him, and there has not been a car company created in 50 years. What are you talking about? Electric car company. Guess what? Today it is worth more than most of the car companies combined, right? So my point is, it takes a one person to go out and make a change to go and say, this is possible. Now, what is the difference between that person and any one of us? It is the belief that we can make it possible, the belief that it is possible, right? It is the only thing that limits us to what we can achieve in our life is our imagination, right? And I think that is the fundamental things we have to understand, because as a society, as a culture, even the people who love us the most, they place limit on what we can achieve. I still remember my mom, when I was young, would say, Naveen, you're brilliant. You can do anything you want. The sky is the limit, right? And right then and there, she put a limit on what I could do without ever realizing the sky doesn't exist. The sky is a figment of our imagination. We put these imaginary limit on ourselves, because it's not like when you go from here to the moon, you say, hey, mom, I just passed the sky, right? There is no sky. And my point is, how many of these skies that we put on our way, every time I go out to do something, I say, we can't do that. That is my sky. I can't achieve that because I'm brown. That is my sky. I can't achieve that because I live in India. That's my sky. The answer is, it doesn't matter. Now, despite all the things that have come, that have been, people have suffered from this pandemic of COVID, one thing we have now realized is distances don't matter. That means we can now work virtually from anywhere in the world. Now that means you and I and everyone has access to the same resources that the most powerful country has. We all have access to the same research that anyone else has. You have access to the same thing that anyone else has. Now, what is lacking is your dream, your imagination. And I think, to me, partly it is systemic that Kunal is trying to solve here, and partly it is a mindset. The reason I call it systemic is that every time, as a parent or as a teacher, what is it that we tell people? I'm going to teach you something, and I'm going to take you to the water, and I'm going to make you drink. I'm going to make sure you learn that. And they believe, as a teacher or as a parent, it's my responsibility to take you to the water and make you drink that water. That's how I'm becoming a good parent or a good teacher. Whereas I believe, as Kunal said, that the best way to create that, best way to get someone to drink water is to make them thirsty. If you can make them thirsty, they will find their own water and they will drink it. Now, how do you make someone thirsty? That is where the intellectual curiosity comes in. If you can make someone intellectually curious all their life, they'll be looking to satisfy that thirst. They'll be quenching that thirst of curiosity, and they'll be learning all their life. And that's all it takes. I remember all three of our children who have now grown up, and they're doing some amazing, amazing things. And maybe later in the thing, I'll tell you about all their young people. They're all between 22 and 30 doing some amazing things. But guess what? I remember when they were young, anytime they come back and saying, "Oh, Dad, I don't think that would ever work. I don't think that is possible." And I always say, what if? What if it was actually possible? Now imagine a world, what would that look like if this was possible? And have them start thinking about that world, that what if that could be done. And by simply imagining it, they start to think of a solution how to get there. And to me, that is the trick, is to, if you can imagine a world in a vivid details, you can create that world, right? And to me, that is really the key to growth, the key to moving the society forward. The foundation is that intellectual curiosity. So Kunal, my hats off to you for what you're doing there.
Thank you so much for the encouragement, sir. And as you have rightfully put it, that imagination technically has no limit. And as long as we can imagine what we really want in the world, we can create it. And so from that angle, you have been doing exactly that at Viome and Moon Express. If you could give us some examples how curiosity and imagination is helping you solve those big audacious goals at Viome and Moon Express, that would be really great.
Yeah. So Kunal, let me go through the framework, because once you explain the framework, then it's not about the company that you create, it's about the framework that you use. So in my world, anytime you want to solve a audacious problem, and let me get it out there, it's easier to solve a big problem than to solve a small problem. And I can give you a number of reasons why that is, but let's move that to the next part of the segment here. But let me go through this framework of how do you start a company or anything that has an audacious goal. So there are three parts to the framework. One is why this, second is why now, and the third is why me. So why this is, you have to ask yourself, God forbid I'm actually successful in solving this problem. Is it really going to help 1 million people, 10 million people, 100 million people, or billion people? Because to me, if you're going to do something that you're going to dedicate 10 years of your life to doing it, and if it's not going to move the needle, then you may as well go do something else. And coming back to it is, the bigger the problem, the easier it is to solve it, because best and the brightest in the world want to work on the toughest problem. When you tell someone you're going to be going out making the illness optional, you get the best and the brightest from the world wanting to come and join you, because guess what? It becomes their legacy. It becomes a problem that could help 1 billion people. You're not going to find the best and the brightest and say, I'm going to develop an iPhone app that's going to help you find a roommate, right? You're not going to find the best and the brightest getting excited about doing that, right? And it's not that it's a bad business, it is just not audacious enough for the best minds to come together. And the second part of why this is, are you truly obsessed about solving this problem? Right? That means, do you wake up in the morning thinking about it? Do you go to sleep thinking about this problem? And here is one easy way to know that you're working on a wrong problem. When you get up in the morning, if you ever lie down in the bed for 30 seconds, whatever you're working on, you should quit it that day and get out of it. Because that means you're not excited about what you're doing. That means you need to be jumping out of the bed. I honestly get up at 4 a.m. and never lie down. I don't need a clock. I don't need any alarm. I just jump out of the bed and say, wow, another amazing day for me to go out and do things that I absolutely love. Right. And I think when people say, why do you work such long hours? You don't have to. And I say, who says I'm working? I'm retired. This is my retirement. I do only the things I love doing, and I do them all the time. Nobody tells me what not to do, which is to work, right? Which is to solve these problems, right? The second part of this thing is, so now, coming back to Viome and Moon Express, let me start with Viome. Now, the why this was very clear. We believed This is the first time in the human history we are able to actually now, what if we can solve the problem of chronic diseases? As you know, every one of us knows someone who is suffering from a chronic disease, whether it is a cancer, whether it is a depression, whether it is Alzheimer, whether it is heart disease or obesity or diabetes or autoimmune disease. Every one of us knows someone who has, and every one of us is going to face it. In fact, I would say aging is a chronic disease, and we're all going to die from aging. That is one chronic disease that kills everyone, right? So what if you look at aging as a chronic disease that can possibly be solved, right? And I know people are saying, wait a sec, what will happen to the planet when no one dies? And like, we'll get back to it in a second here for a second. But assume that problem can be solved. Now, imagine if the chronic disease can be solved. To me, the why this was very clear. This was a problem worth solving. Having lost my dad to cancer, I knew this problem is worth solving. Having watched my grandmother having a dementia, I knew this problem is worth solving. And having seen so many friends who have committed suicide, I knew this problem is worth solving, right? So to me, it was just that if we could do that, it will help a billion people live a better life. And to me, I was absolutely, truly obsessed about solving this problem. The second part is why now? And this is interesting, and everyone has to ask, it doesn't matter what you're doing, is what is it that's possible today that wasn't possible a decade ago? And the reason for that is you have to believe that you're not the smartest person in the world, right? That means if this problem could have been solved 10 years ago with the technology that was available 10 years ago, somebody would have done it. So you have to see what had changed. Are there new set of technologies that are available? Are there new behavior that have changed that allows you to do this now than you couldn't do before? COVID happened. Nobody would have imagined that COVID was going to come around, and COVID had changed everything. Who would have ever thought this conclave was going to be a virtual conclave, right? Nobody would have imagined a year ago. People would have laughed at you, so like, you can't put together an event or something. Why are you? But point is that it created a new opportunity now. The time is now. It couldn't have been done 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, right? Now, in terms of why on the same thing happened, we say to solve the chronic diseases, the couple of things have to happen. You have to be able to digitize the human body. That means the cost of sequencing the biological material, whether it is your blood or stool or saliva or urine or any type of thing, you're going to take a physical material. Unless you can digitize it, you're not going to be able to solve this problem. The second part of it needs to be, which is cost of sequencing has to come down significantly from $100,000 to under $100. And we knew that was happening. Second thing was to decode all this massive amount of digital data. The cost of processing the data has to come down. It would have required a supercomputer that no one had access to. Guess what? Now you can fire up 1,000 cores on Amazon Web Service. Any one of us can do that. So that problem was getting solved. And the third was deciphering this data about using AI. And AI was becoming, artificial intelligence was becoming powerful enough to be able to make sense of all this data. So I saw this confluence of all these technology coming together that we thought would allow us to digitize, decode, and decipher the human body to prevent and reverse chronic disease. Right. The third part of the puzzle is probably the most important part, which is why me? And I think, Kunal, you mentioned something that's worth repeating here. Why me is, what is it that I believe in that other people don't believe in? What is the question that I'm asking that is different from what anyone else is asking? As an entrepreneur, as a person who is solving a problem, it is more important to ask the right question than to have the right answers. And everyone focuses on coming up with a solution. And I think the best person who can frame the right question is really changes everything, the problem you solve. And I'm going to give you two examples of that, both from Moon Express and Viome, just to bring that point home. So as Moon Express, we were saying that, hey, we have to save the human species from a potential extinction just in case our spacecraft gets damaged because we get hit by an asteroid. We don't want to be a dinosaur species that completely got wiped out, right? Now, we're going to go settle on the moon. We're going to settle on the Mars. And we're going to go beyond Mars to Pluto and everywhere else into other galaxies. But and people will say, wait a sec, if you're going to live on the moon, how are you going to grow the food on the moon? And that's a question everyone wanted to know. And I thought that was a wrong question to be asking, because what if you ask a slightly different question that says, why do we eat food? Then suddenly everything changes, because if you ask a question, how to grow the food, the only solution is to grow the food on the moon. Now, if you say why we eat food, we say we eat food because we need energy. and we need nutrition. What if we can get energy from radiation? What if we can get energy from photosynthesis? What if we can get energy from thermal? We can get energy 10 different ways. Now, nutrition. What if the nutrition that we need is hydrogen and oxygen that's already contained in the water? Right. Point is, can we take all those elements and create a solution? But the point is, simply by asking a different question, now you have a potential solution that never would have existed. Same thing happened when I started Viome. Everyone was asking the same question. What if we can understand the human genes? What if we can understand the microbial genes? We'll be able to know what is going on. And to me, I thought that was a wrong question, because the right question would be, since when you develop chronic diseases, your genes don't change. When you gain 200 pounds, you still have the same DNA. When you become depressed, your DNA hasn't changed. When you get any type of a disease, your DNA doesn't change. So how can the solution will be in the genes? It has to be in the gene expression. My question when I started Viome was, what is more important is what the genes are expressing, not what the genes are. And that will where the solution would lie. That means not what microbes are there, but what microbes are doing. That would what would matter. And just that simple question led us down the path to be able to analyze that. That was never ever done. And we actually went down that path. Today, we are able to predict before you have a cancer or obesity or depression and diabetes, and use the food as a medicine to be able to reverse it. Now imagine that, using the food as a medicine, and people say, wow, that's such a brilliant idea. And answer is not a brilliant idea. That idea has been around for thousands of years. Ayurveda has had it in India. And by the way, if you don't believe in Ayurveda, if you believe in the Western philosophy, a Greek doctor named Hippocrates said, all diseases begin in the world. Let food be thy medicine, let thy medicine be the food, right? One man's food is another man's poison. My point is, it is not a novel concept that I dreamed about. It is a concept that has been there forever. All we're doing is not personalizing it to each individual. That technology allows you to do today that couldn't have been done. Right? Now, to me, that is how you take that framework in solving any problem, by the way, including interpersonal relationship, right? Every one of them think you can apply the same work. Why this, why now, why me?
Perfect. I mean, this is really fascinating. And whoever is listening, you just heard him give you the best framework you can ever use in your life to solve problems. And 3 questions: why this, why now, why me? That's all you need. And of course, as he mentioned, art of questioning, that is a life skill that you must acquire to solve bigger problems in your life or even smaller problems in your life. Now, sir, let me get to the heart of the discussion, which is today's sustainability we're talking about. And I have on Amazon Audible, I have the audiobook of Moonshots with me, and I was listening to parts of it, and I found this that you have said there, or written in the book, rather. In Moonshots, you write, a bigger problem on sustainability's horizon is that sustainability is not actually sustainable. Sustainability won't help us in a world where we have to create more of what we need rather than consume less of what we have. Creating that world will take nothing less than moonshot thinking. Now, this is a fundamental shift that you're asked to make in people's thinking. So, what I would like to know from you is, what is moonshot thinking? And why do you think more is better than less?
Sure. Yeah. So let me rephrase that thing. So first of all, if you look at the sustainability can never come from conservation. It can only come from creation. So for example, let's assume we say we have a finite, what I would call is mind of scarcity rather than abundance. We say we have a finite amount of oxygen on this planet. Let's start with that. And then we can apply that to almost everything else. And we say, you know what? Now, to sustain ourselves, we should breathe less. That means every 2 minutes, we should stop breathing 15 seconds. And people say, you know what? I think I'm going to do that. And if it really helps the planet, I'm going to do that. Well, guess what? Now we have a billion more people. Now, can you stop breathing 30 seconds every 2 minutes? I don't know. It's going to be hard, but if it's good for the planet, I will do that. Guess what now? Now there are another billion people. Now we say, can you stop breathing for a minute? Or you can, and answer is no, you can't. So my point is that at the end of the day, that conservation mechanism will always break down. The only way you can create true sustainability is to find more oxygen that you can breathe. That means find a way to create more of what people are going to need rather than simply conserve what we have. Conservation can work in a short term to be able to get across until we have a long-term solution of creation. But in a long term, if sustainability becomes a synonym for conservation, it will never be sustainable, because sooner or later you cannot conserve enough. You cannot say, let's not eat enough, let's not breathe enough, let's not go do anything enough, and then you cannot do that. So point is, what if you can say, look, we're going to need more oxygen. Let us find a way to take the carbon dioxide and convert carbon dioxide both into carbon that could be actually the fertilizer that could be reused to create diamonds or whatever else you want, and the oxygen that is needed for the thing. So not only you are making the planet less carbon dioxide, you're also creating two elements of it. Both can be used individually for the benefit of humanity. So my point is, the more you start to think about creating more, you'll be able to actually create a long-term sustainable society rather than a short-term thinking that that comes from the mindset of scarcity. So the mindset of scarcity comes that everything we have is finite. And mindset of abundance says that there is everything out there in plentiful. Just to give you an idea, we somehow have come up with a belief that we live on this spacecraft called planet Earth, and this is the only thing we have. Now, point is, if you look in a bigger picture, our Earth is a tiny, tiny dot in our own solar system. Our solar system is nothing special. It is sitting on the side, a tiny dot. The whole solar system is a tiny dot in our galaxy. Our galaxy is a tiny dot in our universe. And our universe may be a tiny dot in this multiverse. And then we say, all we have is this tiny, tiny, tiniest dot. That's all we have. And that's because the mindset says this is the only place we can live. Now, where is the scarcity? Scarcity of water? This world is full of water everywhere in the universe. Where is the scarcity of energy? The more energy falls on planet Earth every 90 minutes than we use in the whole year, just from our solar system, right? My point is, in terms of land, we fight over the land. Where is the scarcity of land? There's land everywhere to live, wherever you want, right? So my point is, it is the mindset that actually creates a scarcity rather than looking at the stuff and saying, all that's out there that is possible.
Sir, that's so well put. And Moonshots is a really inspiring book. I would recommend all of you to read it. It's available on Amazon and everywhere else. And this is one of the top 5 books that have impacted my life deeply, sir. I must tell you that.
Thank you.
And apart from a few books that I've read, which includes Pour Your Heart Into It by Howard Schultz and Screw It, Let's Do It by Richard Branson, this is probably the 4th book that have deeply impacted me. So really thank you for that, sir. And since you are talking about creating this world of abundance and this, moonshot goals that you can achieve, you've already given some frameworks and set of, ways to do it. But most of us are technically busy, grappling human normality. So for us to I think 2 things is very difficult to change. That is behavior and mindset. It takes a long time, and that's what. So, what would you say that? How do we build that mindset in today's young people? Like, how do you really do that?
So first of all, I think there are a couple of underlying questions that you have there. One is that young people are actually much more socially conscious now than our generation ever was, or in fact, I would say my parents' generation or my grandparents' generation was, right? So having that socially conscious world is a great for the universe, right? As I've always said, it is good to leave a great world for our children, but it's even better to leave a great children for the world. And that to me is also, that means I'm proud of the thing that the current children are doing. But what I see them lacking is, despite all the energy and enthusiasm they bring to the problems, they tend to miss out. They believe the activism is what is needed to change. activity, it does not move the world forward. So you could run in a circle and you could be really, really busy and running, constantly running, and you're tired, but world doesn't move forward. That means you have to look at the stuff, what needs to happen to solve the problem, and never ever mistake activity for progress. The progress happens when you go towards your North Star. Activity happens when you run in a circle, right? So you could do a lot of activity without making any progress. The second part of the thing is, this mindset is created from the time we are born. Money doesn't grow on trees. There is finite of everything. We are told, oh my God, you're not first, that means somebody else won. And we have created this idea of win lose. If you have it, someone else doesn't have it. If you are rich, that means someone else has to be poor, right? Because someone is taking from someone. We always say, oh, the rich people have the knee on my neck, that's the reason I can't grow. The answer is, there is so much wealth out there. Where is there is no limitation in the scarcity of things that are possible, right? We are taught that there is only one right answer to every problem. Remember, you're going through any of the quiz. Here is a question, there are the 4 answers. And if we say this might be right or this might be right, you're wrong. Only one right. And my point is, we always constantly taking the creativity away from the people that says there is more than one way of solving the problem, but we teach them in education there is only one right answer. And the answer is, in the real world, there are 10 right answers, not one right answer, right? Every time in the education, Kunal, you will appreciate it, is that, we look at the world where we, as opposed to collaborating, it is about my knowledge that matters. So today, if I am sitting in an exam, I say, Savitri, can you tell me how to solve this problem? Oh, that's called cheating. And if I say the same thing at work, and Savitri, can you help me solve this problem? Oh my God, Naveen is such a great team player. So at work, the same skill becomes a team player. At school, it's called cheating. So what is wrong with our education system where we are telling people that when you ask for help, you're cheating? Right? So my point I'm trying to make is that the whole system has to change. And I think the other thing that I wanted to just say, that because I think, as having a young children, is people get extremely disappointed when things don't quite work out in the way they expect them to be. So the anxiety and stress comes from one simple thing. It is a gap between your expectations and the reality. Unfortunately, reality and the universe doesn't really care what you expect. It is going to do what it is going to do. It is your expectations that actually cause the stress to happen. So what I realize is that once you learn to accept and expect that there are going to be ups and downs in life, then everything becomes good. So the way I explain to our children is, your life needs to be like a heartbeat. The only time you know you are alive is you have a heartbeat. It goes up and down and up and down. When your life becomes smooth, you're dead. So never live a life that is not going up and down. If you're living a smooth life, you're living a dead life. Dead life means you're not doing anything that's worth doing. Because if you're doing anything worth doing, you're going to have these ups and downs. That's what tells you you're alive. The trick is, when you are down, never ever to believe that that is the end of it. You hunker down and you know the next beat is going to be right up. And when you're on top of that world, you never get too cocky, because winter is coming and winter will come, right? That means you're going to have the downturn. So keep your friends close and always stay humble, because the minute you lose that humility, that's your downturn that comes sooner than you expected.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's so well put. Life is indeed a roller coaster, and we should always keep in mind that the high is coming, and we should always focus on that positive side of it. That's thank you so much, sir, for sharing that. Now, of course, I follow you on Twitter, and I found there you said once that this is like a lot of people like to reading this kind of thing, and you said that if you want to make $1 billion, solve a $10 billion problem. Right. So, what are those 10 billion problems according to you? And in context of that, of course, similarly, you have set up X Prize, which is about solving those bigger problems and giving at least the people that opportunity to incentivize that mission. So, tell us a little bit about it. I think Savitri's dropped out, but we can definitely continue.
Okay, good. So essentially, Kunal, any problem that is we call the social problem, they tend to be a multi-$100 billion problem. So you can look at, lack of fresh water in the world, a lack of sustainable energy, the lack of great healthcare, lack of great education. All of those things are multi-trillion dollar problems. So any one of the things that are what we call the social problems are the biggest audacious problem. That means the bigger the problem, bigger the opportunity as an entrepreneur. So if you want to create $100 billion company, it's really easy. Go solve a massive problem that's worth multi-$100 billion, right? And anytime you want to solve a problem, focus on how many lives can you change. If you can help 1 billion people live a better life, I don't care what you do. If 1 billion people are going to be better off because of you, you can create $100 billion company from that. No brainer, right? So point is, when people want to start a company to make money, that is when they fail. When they continue to focus on solving the problem of making lives better for 1 billion people, you create a massively great company. But when you focus on making money, you always end up actually never succeeding here, right? So to some extent, always focus on the goal of solving the pain point, solving the thing, how to make people's lives better. Don't look at the world as is, look at the world what it can be. So the idea that used to be in the olden days is that, if you are a pessimist, you look at the glass as half empty or half full. But the point is, that is actually the wrong question. You don't need to worry about is the glass half empty or half full. The only thing you worry about is, do you want to fill that glass or not? Is that glass worth filling? Because if the glass is worth filling, does it really matter is half empty or half full? You're going to fill it up anyway. And does it really matter is half empty or half full if you never want to fill that glass anyway? So my point is, focus on what you want the world to be, not what the world is. Focus on what, if you can imagine and create and describe the world in vivid details, that's the world you need to create. And the last point I want to make here is, as opposed to, anytime you run into a thing, we say this problem can't be solved. Instead of that, you simply were to just change that question to say, what needs to happen for this problem to get solved? That means you say, if this problem can't be solved, I get it. Describe what technologies are missing or what technologies needs to be developed for this problem to be solved. So for example, you believe going to the moon cannot be solved. So let's start and think, what would it take? Well, someone has to build some type of a rocket that will take you out of Earth gravity. Check mark, done. Well, you have to be able to now, once you get to the lunar atmosphere, to be able to slow down. And can you build something that will help you slow down and land? Check mark, done. To be able to now go do this, that is not done. Let's go build that technology, right? So my point is, when you start to break down what needs to happen, you will find there are few missing pieces that you can work on to solve, and suddenly the whole problem becomes solvable. So just asking the question, what needs to happen to solve this problem, is it actually allows you to find what you should be working on, rather than saying this problem can't be solved.
Great. Sir, you have of course mentioned questioning part quite a bit of times, but I'll go back to one point that you made in the last question. That is, it is more important to live better children than a better planet. And at this point, I'd like to ask you that you have 3 children, and tell us a little bit about them and how they are doing great work, so that that can be an inspiring example for today's youth as well.
Kunal, thank you very much for asking, because that there's nothing gives me more joy as a father than to talk about our children that are doing great things here. So I have 3 children. Oldest one is 30 years old. When he was 16 years old, he started something called Kairos, and Kairos now became the world's largest college entrepreneurship thing. When he started to bring all the entrepreneurs from around the world together and bring the mentors to them. And today now he is running Kairos to solve 3 problems: affordable housing, affordable senior care. And he has, in fact, if you Google Ankur, Ankur, last name Jain, you will see he's literally profiled in a Wall Street Journal to New Yorker to Inc. magazine to Fast Company to entrepreneurship everywhere, right? Just doing some amazing thing as an entrepreneur to help billion people live a better life. Our daughter graduated from Stanford. She's Stanford STEM fellow, Stanford Mayfield fellow. She's a United Nations ambassador for women's education. And now she was working after she graduated, she worked for 4 years on solving the problem of gender gap. How do we use the artificial intelligence to get more women to be in the workforce, to remove the gender bias in hiring? And now she quit that, and now she's starting the second company on women's health. How do we get women to essentially stay healthy? Because the women's health issues are different from the men's health issues. So no one has been focused on that. So you say, I'm going to go out and now focus on the women's health issue. Our youngest one is Neil, and he graduated from Stanford last year, and then he became a Schwarzman scholar, which is like a Rhodes Scholar. And then he just graduated from his Schwarzman Scholar. Now he's going to be starting his own company to go out and solve the next problem. So 3 children, 2 went to Stanford, did an amazing thing, and our oldest went to Wharton, and just absolutely focused on solving the problem that helps people. Now, the interesting thing is, the truth is they don't have to work. I mean, God has been very kind. I grew up in India with no food to eat, came to this country with absolutely nothing. And God has given us more than we could have ever desired. But guess what? These children are even hungrier than I would have ever imagined, because the reason is for them, we taught them when they were young that your success will never be measured by how much money you have in the bank. It will be measured by how many lives they're able to improve. And that's the only success that matters. The second thing I told them was your self-worth never comes from owning things. Your self-worth comes from creating things. So if you own a lot that you inherited, but you haven't created anything, you're still a parasite on humanity. So don't be a parasite.
So everyone who is listening, create, don't own. That's the takeaway from this. And such an inspiring story. So I would probably, if I next time when I come to US, I would definitely try to sneak in to check your rock collection, and of course, probably study the genes of the giants for sure.
Yeah.
And now
Gene
I will.
expression.
Yes, and thank you so much, sir. Now I would request. We have Savitri with us, who is a member of our global team. She's a young professional, and she has a couple of questions for you. And I would hand over to Savitri. Savitri, you can introduce yourself and ask questions. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, hello Naveen. I'm Savitri, as I talked earlier. I'm actually from Sri Lanka. I joined Alexis group recently as an intern to work towards this conclave. I'm a researcher. My expertise is in international relations, and I'm also an environmental well-being advocate. So I've started my own platform on environment. Well, it's in the startup. It's a startup now, where I'm just creating awareness now. I'm hoping to go into a production line hopefully next year, because I was not prepared for what was coming this year. So I'm trying to work it out now. So that's about me. So actually, I have 2 questions for you, Naveen. I would like to go for the first question, because I'm speaking from a perspective of youngsters. I'm sure there are a lot of people that have difficulty in learning at school, in following the established system and set of rules. So, what would be your advice to them, as an inspirational as you are to the young community who broke from ordinariness and who shot for the moon? I'm sure they will be so interested to hear your opinion and your advice to them. So, for a person, for a young person, for a youth who feel as if the entire environment around him or her is trying to push them down, so what would be your advice to them?
Yeah, so I think you have to first of all believe that world and universe is not against you, because that's a fundamentally, once you start to believe the universe is your friend, universe is not your enemy, then that means what happens is anytime something happens, you don't say, oh my God, that happened to me again. That means the whole world is around against me. Everyone is trying to push me down. If you believe fundamentally that happened because universe has something great in mind for you, that means everything that happens is for greater good for you, not someone else, for you. And the minute you start to change that mindset to say, If the bad things are happening, that means those are exactly the path is going to lead to a great thing. And unless you believe in that, you will never be able to succeed. So, when we were young and we moved from village to village and went to some of the most rural villages where there were no schools and there was nothing, there were no school to sit on, there no tables, no chairs, you sat on the floor, and some elderly gentleman will take a pity on you and come and start to teach you math. They'll start to teach you something. And guess what happened? That was exactly the path universe had in mind for me, because I learned the tricks and the things that I would have never learned in school, because they were teaching me about how do you do the multiplication in the easiest way, how do you find these things in the easiest way, because they had learned all these tricks, that the elderly gentlemen. So I learned more about life and education from just not even having a proper school. And doesn't mean that I didn't go to the proper school. To me, the education is the foundation that you have to have. But when something bad happens, don't believe the world is against you. Believe the world is giving you a chance to show what you are made of. And every time you get out of that adversity, that shows you're made of a metal that is not going to bend to the will of someone else. It's going to stand for its own will. And it's not going to let someone tell you that you cannot do it. It cannot be done. It doesn't matter you're from a village. It doesn't matter what caste you are from. It doesn't matter where you are from. You can succeed. But the minute you believe everyone is against you, then you start to spiral down. The world is against me. And believe the world is there for me. There are good people out there. And as soon as they find out what I'm made of, they're going to take me and lift me out to wherever I need to go.
So that was very inspirational to me, because I see you now that I've talked to you, I see you as this ball of enthusiasm and positivity that actually changed me as a person, actually. So I have to tell that to you. And so as I write it down, I actually wrote it down. It's the mindset that creates the scarcity. So I'll actually write it and display it to myself so that I'll always look up to it. So thank you so much. So the next question would be, so as a youth myself, I'm gearing myself up with experiences and knowledge and striving to reach for my goals each and every day. So what will be the three things that I have to follow in realizing my goals, in becoming an innovator? Because innovators are what the world need right now. So what would be the three things that I have to follow?
First thing is, don't focus on the goals. Goals should be simply the North Star about where you want to be. But the minute you start to have these goals, then suddenly you're constantly working against expectations and reality. So goals should be a long-term North Star of where you want to be. And then focus on the actions that you're going to take every single day. And every day you say, what am I going to do today that will push me towards my North Star, an inch forward, 6 inches forward, or a foot forward, right? Every day. So I can tell you that every single day, in the morning, I pray and ask God for giving me wisdom, to be able to give me the patience to be able to understand what is going on around the world around me, and give me the wisdom to be able to act on it properly. And every night before I go to bed, I do the gratitude. God, thank you for what happened today. And have I grown today in three ways? Have I grown intellectually? Did I learn something new today? Have I grown emotionally? Am I better off, have more empathy towards the universe than I had before? And the third is spiritually. Do I really believe the universe is my friend rather than my enemy? And if I'm moving towards those three things, I have constantly making progress towards my goals of being a better person. And as being a better person, I will always be able to make better decisions that will take me towards my achieving my goals. Right? The second thing is, never believe that there is any goal that is not achievable. Because the minute you believe something is impossible, it becomes impossible for you and no one else, right? So always believe that, dream audacious, dream so big that people think you are crazy. And I would say that, the thing that is most important as a young person, and if you can, that would be the last, my takeaway would be, fall in love with yourself. And what I mean by that is not to be self-conceited, but not look for someone's approval, right? Because to me, when you fall in love with yourself, you say, look, I am just the way I am. I may not have the perfect nose, I may not have the perfect eyes, I may not have the perfect voice, but I am just so proud of who I am. I love myself. And that means my what how I feel doesn't get determined by what someone else thinks of me. I'm not looking for their approval. So even if someone were to walk up to me and says, God, you're really stupid, and my answer is, thank you very much, I hope someday you'll get to know me better, but thank you for your feedback, right? It doesn't matter to me what you think, because what matters to me, who I believe I am, and I love myself. And part of it is, when people ask me, say, if you could go back in life, what would you change? And my answer is absolutely nothing. And here's why. Because if you change anything, whether it's good or bad, it will change the trajectory of who you would have become. And the fact, if you love yourself the way you are today, why would you want to change anything that happened in the past? Because you won't be who you are today. So just having that and not looking for an approval. And I think that's the biggest thing most youth have, is they're constantly looking for someone's approval, and they want everyone to like them, right? And I can tell you that the best, if you really want everyone to like you, there is a simple rule: do nothing, be nothing, and stand for nothing. And you become a doormat and people may like you, but that's not the life worth living.
Thank you so much, sir.
That's
And
completely true, sir.
thank you so much, Aditi, for those questions. Now, let me just sum it up, and we are almost towards the end of our session. So, sir, thank you so much for joining us and giving us those beautiful insights. And everyone who is joining and listening in, fall in love with yourself, dream big, and create, not own. And you just have to ask 3 questions to solve all the problems of your life. Why this? Why now? Why me? And with that, we end this session. But before we conclude, Naveen sir, I have one question left for you. That
Ask me,
is,
ask me.
if you have to define your vision for a better world in one sentence, what would that be?
A world where everyone can be themselves, everyone can live their life with their own goals and mission, and able to pursue their own North Star without ever having anybody interfering with that, or to be able for them to be able to be judged by someone else, that is that the right North Star. Every one of us comes here for a purpose. If we can go out and stay focused on achieving that purpose, this world will be a great place.
Thank you so much. And here is to that world, that every step that we take is for that world, for everyone to achieve their potential and their purpose in life here on earth. Once again, thank you so much, Naveen sir, for joining us, giving us your valuable time and sharing these insights with everyone here. And on behalf of Alexis Society Youth Forum, I request all of you to follow Naveen sir. We will, of course, share his social media links with all of you. And please write to him. Actually, that's how I got in touch with him. So, everyone can. He's very, helpful, and he has been with us as well. And follow us on Instagram at the rate Youth Forum India. And please don't forget to join other sessions of the SDG Action Conclave 2020. Till we meet again, and till you join us again, be better, dream better, and dream bigger. Thank you so much.